Hello. Today I'm sitting at my kitchen table, and we're talking about downloadable content! It's a buzzword, shortened to DLC. This topic was, I think in my notes it says it was vaguely suggested by a commenter by the name of Random Man Ray. He suggested a few topics. I don't know if I've already done one. I don't remember what exactly he said, because this was almost a month ago at this point, but that was in my notes, so credit where credit is due, I guess. Also in my notes is just the phrase DLC, so I'm just gonna talk about it in as general a sense as I can. The conversation that is usually brought up when DLC is, sort of brought to the forefront is, do you like it? Is it good? And that is a very broad spectrum to cover. I will say blanket, yes, I like DLC. I think the cases of it being fun and good heavily outweigh the bad sort of practices that some companies will do, like just stripping a part of the game that was ready for launch just to sell to you, back to you later. That's shitty, but obviously what we want DLC to be is just additional content that is provided after or outside the regular development cycle that a game takes. Good examples of this would be the Smash Bros. Fighters. Those have the DLC for, we only have DLC for one Smash game so far, but those have always been after the fact. Development time has been taken place after the fact. They weren't just, it's not like they took Mario out of the game and sold him to you at a later date. They were all new things that were brought to the forefront after development was done on the original game. Maybe a little bit, because I know Mewtwo was in development after the game went golden, I think. Smash 4, but anyway. There's iffy grounds. We don't know how dev times actually work. But another good example, just to get more good examples out of the way, is for my favorite game, Horizon Zero Dawn. They had one DLC, and it's a fantastic DLC. It's called The Frozen Wilds. It's basically an expansion to the game, which, that's another thing that's sort of bordering on like MMO stuff. Expansions and DLC for MMOs are very different because MMOs and games that act as a service, sort of DLC is in their blood, where games like Horizon, which is a very single player game, when you have a DLC, I think it was a $15 DLC, that basically acted as an expansion, it's sort of not the norm. It was very good. It was an entire new area with an entire standalone storyline that didn't really affect the it didn't really change the main game in any meaningful way, if that makes sense. You can play through Horizon and get to the DLC at any point if you want. I think I played it after the fact. The story can slot in pretty much anywhere, and there's a little bit in that one specifically that hints towards it being taken out of the original game. Not taken out, but like they knew that they were going to do the DLC ahead of time, which I have no problems with because that's just planning. Like, say if your game's gonna take 6 months to develop, which would be nuts, that's a very small dev cycle, and it's gonna take you 2 extra months to do the DLC, but you really want that DLC to be in there at some point, but the studio is only greenlighting you a 6-month dev cycle, but maybe you could pitch like, hey, we might get a little more profit if we could get some more, like, shelf life out of this game if we promise DLC, or have this DLC that's going to take us 2 months after the fact, and we'll throw in a little bit of Easter eggs that is hinting towards that to come. I see no problem with that. Plan for DLC, sure. Honestly, that probably makes it better because it just doesn't come out of nowhere and feel like it's, a completely different game. If you're sowing the seeds for it, it sort of makes more sense. I agree with a lot of DLC practices. The blanket rule is usually don't be scummy about it. Don't put your DLC behind a paywall. Don't put sections of your game behind a paywall that you were going to make free anyway. Like, don't have, if it's an FPS game, don't have like 10 of your maps for free, and then the rest of the maps, like 5 extra maps, are there completely playable in the game right at launch, but you have to pay $10 a month later for them. Like, don't do that. That's just scummy. So yeah, those are some of my few rambly thoughts on DLC. I did kind of want to hit on Spider-Man's DLC a bit, just to I mean, it's towards the end of the month. Who cares about the timer at this point? I don't know. Insomniac is releasing Spider-Man's DLC in like an episode model where they are sort of splitting up their plans for DLC into 3 episodes. And with how small each episode has been so far, we have 2 out of the 3. I don't honestly see why they didn't just hold it all back until December and release it, all 3 episodes, as just one big thing in December, which would have been very similar to the Frozen Wilds. This is something I expressed on my Twitter when I played the first episode, because they're each about 3 hours long, which, put that together for like a $10 DLC for 9 hours, that's great. That's a fantastic DLC pack, but each one being a 3-hour experience is a little underwhelming. I just think it would have been better if they held it all back until December, or just, you know, when all of it was ready, and just push it all out. But anyway, those are my thoughts on DLC. Like I said earlier, be sure to watch the video somewhere. I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I'm sort of in the middle of the frame. Here, I'll scoot over a bit. It's probably right there. And watch tomorrow's video. We're closing up here, closing up shop. I'm dying as well. So yeah, I die at the end of this month. I don't know if that was clear. Bye-bye.